Let's be honest for a second. You are probably smart, you are probably talented, you have likely spent the better part of your life grinding, studying, optimizing your resume, and trying to climb some ladder that you were told leads to the promised land of success. You have navigated the treacherous waters of higher education, you have survived the soul-crushing absurdity of entry-level jobs, and maybe you have even landed a gig that pays you enough to buy overpriced coffee and vaguely contemplate home ownership in a market that hates you. But here's the uncomfortable question that keeps you awake at 3 a.m. when the blue light from your phone finally stops distracting you. Is this it? Is the pinnacle of your existence really just optimizing click-through rates for a company that sells digital toaster ovens? Is your legacy going to be a PowerPoint presentation that 3 people read and then immediately forgot? Rutger Bregman wrote a book called Moral Ambition to essentially grab you by the shoulders and shake you until your teeth rattle. The book is a wake-up call. It is a slap in the face to the modern definition of success. Bregman is the historian who famously went to Davos, that mountain retreat where billionaires fly in on private jets to discuss climate change, and told them to stop talking about philanthropy and just pay their taxes. He's not here to make friends. He's here to point out that we have a massive talent problem. The greatest minds of our generation are not curing cancer or solving the energy crisis. They're figuring out how to make people click on ads for mogul games or engineering high-frequency trading algorithms that move money from one pile to a slightly larger pile. This book argues that we need to redefine ambition. We need to stop settling for a career that is merely lucrative and start demanding a career that actually matters. And before we dive into the meat of this, speaking of things that matter, or at least things that matter to my ego and the algorithm, take a second to subscribe to this channel. It costs you $0, it makes me feel validated, and it ensures you keep getting these insights without having to actually read the books, which, let's face it, is the ultimate efficiency hack. Go ahead, click the button. I'll wait. Okay, let's get into the disaster that is your wasted potential. The first major lesson Bregman hits us with is what I like to call the Goldilocks trap of mediocrity. In the book, he discusses how we've been sold a lie about what a career should be. We are told to follow our passion. That is the advice every graduation speaker gives. Follow your passion. But Bregman points out that this is terrible advice. Passion is narcissistic. Passion is about what you enjoy. Maybe your passion is eating nachos and watching true crime documentaries. That is not a career plan. That is a Friday night. The problem is that highly talented people are flocking to jobs that offer money and status, but zero moral value. We have physicists working on Wall Street. We have brilliant engineers tweaking social media algorithms to make them more addictive. It's like having a Formula One car and using it to deliver Uber Eats. Sure, you get the food there fast, but is that really the best use of the engine? Think about it this way. Imagine you're dating someone. They're attractive, they have a great job, they drive a nice car, and they have excellent taste in restaurants. On paper, they're perfect. But then you realize that every time you talk to them, they have absolutely nothing of substance to say. They're hollow. They're a vacuum of personality wrapped in designer clothing. That is the modern corporate career. It looks great on LinkedIn, your parents are proud, but deep down you know it is meaningless. Bregman argues that we need to stop wasting our talent on these bullshit jobs. He calls for a new kind of ambition, moral ambition. This does not mean you have to become a monk or live in a yurt. It means you need to apply the same drive, the same hustle, and the same strategic thinking you use to get a promotion and apply it to doing something that actually fixes the world. It's about closing the gap between what you're capable of and what you're actually contributing. This leads us directly into the second core concept, which is the difference between feeling good and doing good. This is where Bregman gets a little bit spicy and attacks the sacred cow of modern charity. He talks about how most of us approach doing good with the same level of intellectual rigor as a toddler choosing a candy bar. We go for what looks shiny. We donate to charities that have sad commercials with puppies, or the ones that our friends talk about at dinner parties. We do it because it gives us a warm, fuzzy feeling. It's the moral equivalent of eating comfort food. It feels great going down, but it's not necessarily nutritious.
Bregman introduces the concept of effective altruism, but he does it in a way that doesn't feel like a math lecture. He argues that if you really want to make a difference, you have to look at the data. You have to treat doing good like an investment portfolio. If you were investing your life savings, you wouldn't just pick a stock because the logo was cute. You would look at the returns. You would look at the financials. Yet when we donate our time or money, we rarely ask, how effective is this? We just want the dopamine hit of being a nice person. Let's use a fitness analogy here. Imagine you want to get in shape. The effective way to do this is to lift heavy weights, eat protein, and sleep. It's boring, it's repetitive, it works. The way most people approach charity is like buying a vibration plate from a late-night infomercial because the model looked happy. You stand on it, it jiggles you around for 10 minutes, and you think you've done a workout. You haven't done anything. You just vibrated. Bregman is telling us to stop vibrating and start lifting heavy. He suggests that we need to look for the neglected problems, the unsexy problems. Everyone wants to save the cute pandas. Nobody wants to fund research into preventing the next pandemic or improving deworming initiatives in developing nations, even though the latter saves way more lives per dollar. Moral ambition means being willing to work on the boring, complex, unglamorous stuff, because that's where the real impact is. It's about suppressing your ego's need for a hero moment and trading it for actual results. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but I like money. I like my comfortable apartment. I don't want to live in a hut. This brings us to the third lesson, which is that ambition is not a dirty word. Somewhere along the line, the do-gooder community got this idea that to be moral, you have to be meek. You have to be humble, poor, and preferably wearing sandals made of recycled tires. Bregman flips this table over. He says that the problem with the world is that the people with the worst intentions have the most ambition, and the people with the best intentions are often terrified of power. If you're a sociopath who wants to drain the oceans for profit, you're probably working 80 hours a week, networking like crazy and ruthlessly optimizing your path to power. Meanwhile, the people who want to save the oceans are often sitting in a circle singing Kumbaya and worrying about whether their oat milk is locally sourced. Bregman argues that we need to reclaim ambition. We need moral people to want power. We need moral people to want to be rich, provided they use that wealth for the right things. We need to stop equating success with evil. Think about the classic high school movie tropes. You have the popular jock who's the villain. He's ambitious, confident, and runs the school. Then you have the nice, quiet protagonist who just wants everyone to get along. Bregman is saying stop being the quiet protagonist, be the jock, but use your popularity to stop the bullying. If you're smart enough to be a high-frequency trader, go be a high-frequency trader, but then use that massive salary to fund malaria nets. Or better yet, use your brain to design a financial system that isn't a casino. He talks about earning to give versus working directly on the problem. If you're a brilliant coder, maybe don't quit your job to build houses in a village if you're terrible at construction. Stay at your job, make a ton of money, and hire 10 professional builders. That's leverage. That's moral ambition. It's about using your comparative advantage. Don't be a martyr, be a strategist. The fourth lesson is about the specific traps that smart people fall into, specifically the trap of complexity. Smart people love complexity. We love to analyze things to death. We love to write white papers and attend conferences and form committees. Bregman points out that often the solution to a problem is simple, but we ignore it because it's not intellectually stimulating enough. We'd rather design a complex microloan app on the blockchain than just give poor people cash, even though study after study shows that just giving poor people cash is incredibly effective. This is the intellectual equivalent of a Rube Goldberg machine. You know, those contraptions where a marble rolls down a ramp, hits a domino, which knocks over a spoon, which launches a piece of toast. It's fun to watch, but if you want toast, just put the bread in the toaster. We over-engineer solutions because we want to feel smart. We want to be the architect of the solution. But moral ambition requires you to check your intellect at the door if a simpler, dumber solution works better. Imagine you're trying to lose weight. You could design a complex algorithm based on your DNA and blood type and the phases of the moon to optimize your caloric intake. Or you could just stop eating donuts for breakfast. The smart person spends 6 months building the algorithm and gains 5 pounds. The ambitious person just stops eating the donuts. Bregman urges us to look for the low-hanging fruit. What are the obvious, simple things that are not being done because they're not prestigious? This leads to a very practical concept he discusses, which is the idea of career capital. You might be listening to this and thinking, well, I'm already 10 years into a career in marketing. Is it too late for me? Bregman says absolutely not. In fact, your skills are exactly what the moral world needs. The nonprofit sector, the activist sector, the scientific community, they're often terrible at marketing. They're terrible at management. They're terrible at logistics. If you have spent 10 years learning how to sell useless junk to teenagers, you possess a superpower. You know how to persuade people. You know how to move product. You just need to change the product.
It is like the plot of a heist movie. You have a team of criminals, the safecracker, the getaway driver, the grifter. They usually use their skills to steal a diamond. But what if they use those same skills to break into a corrupt pharmaceutical company and release the patent for a life-saving drug? Same skills, different target. You don't need to retrain as a doctor to save lives. You just need to apply your specific brand of corporate dark arts to a cause that isn't evil. The fifth lesson is about the social cost of moral ambition. And let's be real, there is a cost. If you decide to step off the conventional treadmill, people will look at you funny. Your parents might worry. Your friends might think you are having a midlife crisis. Bregman acknowledges this. He talks about how we are social animals and we are terrified of deviating from the herd. We prioritize social proof over moral truth. We would rather be wrong with the group than right by ourselves. It is exactly like high school fashion trends. Remember when everyone wore those ridiculous shutter shades or baggy pants that defied the laws of physics? Looking back, it was objectively terrible, but at the time, if you didn't wear them, you were an outcast. The corporate ladder is the same thing. It is a fashion trend. Working 80 hours a week to make partner at a law firm is just adult peer pressure. Bregman encourages us to be the weirdo, to be the person who breaks the pattern. He suggests finding a community of like-minded people because it is hard to be morally ambitious alone. You need a tribe. You need a group of friends who value impact over status, so you don't feel like a lunatic for turning down a promotion to work on something meaningful. And finally, the sixth lesson, and perhaps the most critical one, is the definition of the enemy. The enemy is not necessarily some evil cabal of villains in a dark room. The enemy is apathy. The enemy is the rationalization we do every day to justify our inaction. We tell ourselves, oh, I will donate when I'm richer, or the system is broken, so what can one person do? Or that's the government's job. Bregman tears these excuses apart. He argues that history is made by small groups of determined people who refuse to accept the status quo. Abolitionists, suffragettes, civil rights leaders, they were not the majority. They were the ambitious minority. He warns against the bystander effect. You know, when someone is in trouble and everyone just watches because they assume someone else will call the police. The entire world is currently having a bystander effect moment regarding climate change, poverty, and existential risks. We are all standing around watching the building smoke, assuming that the adults are going to handle it. Bregman's message is terrifying but empowering. There are no adults. You are the adult. If you don't grab the fire extinguisher, nobody will. So, how do we wrap this up without spiraling into an existential depression? The conclusion of the book is surprisingly hopeful. Bregman believes that we are on the cusp of a moral revolution. He thinks that just as slavery was abolished and women got the vote, we can eliminate factory farming, we can end extreme poverty, and we can prevent catastrophic climate change. But it won't happen by accident. It will happen because people like you decided to stop wasting your talent. The summary is this. You have a limited amount of time on this planet. You have a set of skills that took you years to acquire. Currently, the default setting of the economy is designed to extract that time and those skills for things that do not matter. To break free, you need moral ambition. You need to identify a problem that is huge, neglected, and solvable. You need to use your specific skills to attack that problem.
You need to get over the need to look cool or feel warm and fuzzy and focus on being effective. You need to be willing to be ambitious, to seek power and resources, and to deploy them ruthlessly for the greater good. It is time to update your definition of success. Success is not a corner office. Success is not a million followers. Success is looking back at your life and knowing that the world is slightly less terrible because you existed. It is about moving from what David Brooks calls the resume virtues, wealth, title, prestige, to the eulogy virtues, kindness, bravery, impact. But Bregman adds an edge to it. Don't just be kind, be useful. Don't just be brave, be strategic. So, here's your homework. Look at your calendar for next week. Look at your to-do list. Ask yourself, if I died tomorrow, would any of this matter to anyone other than my boss or my landlord? If the answer is no, start planning your escape. Start plotting your heist. The world has enough smart people making widgets. We need smart people fixing the machine. That's the breakdown of moral ambition. If this kicked you in the shins a little bit, good. That was the point. If you want more kicks in the shins and more breakdowns of books that might actually change your life, make sure you like this video and drop a comment below. Tell me, what is the bullshit job you are currently stuck in? Or what is the neglected problem you want to solve? I read the comments, mostly to procrastinate on my own moral ambition, but I do read them. Thanks for listening, and go do something useful.